are live.
What's up, Facebook?
Who wears a number of hats.
The opportunity to share.
She's one of our own. It has been
They aren't like
parts to your story that I think. That's awesome. You found healing. You found
until I got so bad.
Can't wait for her to share the different aspects of your story and what awesome.
Right.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special episode of Rooted Recovery Stories. It is September, which means it's National Recovery Month, and in celebration and recognition of recovery and all the efforts that go into it, one of the things we're doing is focusing on a different aspect of recovery every week. And this week, our focus is on the community. So through recovery, how we are positively affecting our community around us. And so today's special guest speaker is going to tell her story from that perspective of, sharing her story and where that took her to today. And since she got sober, what her life of recovery has looked like. And those that she gets to positively affect in her community because of the gift of recovery. So I'm extra excited today for who we have here to speak, because she's a very dear friend, old friend. And by old, I mean, we go way back of mine, and I get to work with her at Promises every day, and we get to change lives together. So she's a really wonderful human being, and I'm excited for you all to get to know her and learn more about her story. So with that, I'm going to bring our special guest, Jaime, in. Hey, Jaime, thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, Patrick. Thank you for such a wonderful introduction.
Absolutely. Well, I've said enough now. You know what? I forgot the one housekeeping thing that I always try and talk about is if anybody's watching at any point and you're struggling, or you've got a loved one who's struggling, I would strongly encourage you to take advantage of the information we've got scrolling across the bottom of the screen, to call our admissions line and talk to an admissions counselor to get information or find help that you may need struggling with any addiction problem or mental health disorder. We would be glad to help you. So take advantage of that. And with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to you, Jaime.
Thanks, Patrick. My name is Jaime Gibbons, and I am a person in long-term recovery. And I was thrilled to have the topic of community to weave that into my story of addiction and recovery, because for me, community is everything. So I'm going to briefly just sort of talk about what it was like and what happened and what it's like now. So I'm from Tennessee. I moved here when I was 9 months old, so I'm basically a native. I grew up in a pretty normal, typical family. I have two older sisters. They're 9 and 12 years older than I am. So I was the late life. We didn't know we wanted. Our life couldn't be better now that, we have her baby. But I also kind of had 4 parents, because I had a lot of people telling me what to do and trying to maintain me. And I was kind of a hurricane as a child. I just was really, I was really needy and active and very attached to my family. And, it's funny when I look back on that now, because I see so much of that, that insecurity was just from such a young age. And there's no real reason. Like I said, I came from a really great family. My family is loving and caring, and, we have our stuff just like everybody else does. But, there wasn't a particular event or anything in my childhood that would lead you to believe that addiction would be soon to follow. I grew up, like I said, with my mom and dad and my 2 sisters. drinking was kind of a normal thing in our house. It was okay to have, wine at the holidays, and, my dad might have some beers after work, or, but it wasn't anything that was, overly emphasized, and it wasn't anything that was forbidden. It was just kind of, in the middle. And, so I don't know that I really ever knew anything about alcoholism or addiction or anything other than what I had seen in some movies, and so that, leading into kind of those adolescent years, you have this, what I always describe it as is there was this little voice inside my head from as long as I can remember, just telling me that I wasn't good enough, that I didn't belong, that I needed to do something to earn the love and a place in my family. And again, this is not something that was a result of actions that they perpetrated upon me. Was actually something that came from this inner insecurity and anxiety, and just feeling like I was going to be left behind, and that I wasn't good enough to be part of this, this family. And so, when you have that, then you kind of get into your social circles, even just in elementary school and middle school, and you have a lot of that significant, self-esteem issues and different things. And I think it manifested in a lot of different ways. You're trying to find your spot and your place in the world, and it feels like you just don't have one. And, so then again, you feel like I'm not good enough. I don't belong. I'm not a part of this. I don't have a place here or a purpose. And, as I moved into the high school years, I can say with absolute certainty that I had problematic drinking behavior from the very first time that I tried alcohol, and I was in high school, and I had some friends over, and, we somehow obtained a bottle of alcohol, and we proceeded to drink all of it. And I proceeded to be a blackout drunk the very first time, and all kinds of chaos and drama and, everything that comes with that. But at the same time, this is what I remembered about that significant experience, is that the way I felt when I first started feeling the effects of alcohol was, this is it. I belong. This is it. And this is going to fix it. This is going to fill up that emptiness. This is going to make me find a place. This is going to fix everything. And so regardless of, like I said, the drama and the chaos and the things that happened as a result of that evening, I couldn't wait to do it again. That was, I couldn't wait to have that feeling again, because I was free. That was in my head. That's what freedom felt like to me, was basically just numbed to the point of no feelings. And it progressed from there. And, I didn't have a lot of, trouble in those high school years. As far as, I didn't get in legal trouble. I was a good student, if you looked at the family Christmas card, you would not have said, oh, that one's got a problem. It just wasn't clear on the outside. I was very good at hiding things. And I think that because, as I had mentioned previously, that my family didn't have a lot of experience or knowledge with addiction and recovery and any of that, there would never have been even an inkling that there was something wrong. They would have chalked everything up to normal teenage mistakes and bad decisions, and anything that happened was kind of that. But now looking back on those years in particular, especially knowing what I know now, is that I was constantly seeking that feeling of belonging. I was constantly seeking that. I want to have a purpose. I want to be a part of. I want to be good enough. And besides for drinking, a lot of my decisions that I made were based on that. And that's something sometimes I think that we overlook because we concentrate so much on the actual substance use that we forget that our behaviors are really what are so destructive, and that those can come out in a lot of different ways. So, and like I said, I maintained and I there was no initial red flags, and then I went to college, and that was talk about freedom. I was ready to go, and I was in a sorority, and there was fraternity parties. And so there was, reasons and excuses to drink and basically carry on this really destructive behavior. And it was almost expected, and again, I really feel like those college years, because that is when I first started having legal consequences, academic consequences. Things did start to happen then because I was, I kind of just let loose, and my disease was growing so quickly. But it's interesting to think about those years and how on the outside, again, it appeared, I'm in a sorority, and I'm, going to the socials, and I'm, on this committee, and I'm doing these things. But inside, I just hate myself, because at this point, I've made so many bad choices. I've made so many choices that are against a moral code that I had when I was younger, that I just keep bringing shame upon myself over and over and over again. So I just hate myself. I just am beginning to hate everything about me, and it's getting harder and harder to pretend to be something and then hate yourself at the same time. And, and really the next, I'd say probably 5 or 6 years was that on repeat. It was Groundhog Day. It was 2 steps forward and 12 steps back. I'd start something, I'd get a new job, I'd move, I'd get a new friend group, I'd do all these things that were going to fix it. And I just couldn't fix it. I was very resistant to any type of help or intervention, because at this point, my family was starting to say, this doesn't seem right. Especially my sisters, they were very concerned and adamant that this was not normal behavior for a 20-something adult. And of course, I always had a great excuse as to why it was. And, and I had a wonderful spin to put on everything. And then I would just play the victim, and that, I would just manipulate everyone around me. And that when you live your life that way, from the outside, you would think, oh, I'm getting away with something, and she must be so happy she's getting away with all of this. But it's so the opposite, because every time you deceive someone, or every time you lie to somebody or manipulate them, it's just another, block on that shame. It's just building it so, tall, and you're just surrounded by it. And so I I did what any self-respecting addict and active addiction would do. And I moved just far enough away from my family where they couldn't be involved in my business, but not too far away in case I needed help or to get bailed out of something. So, I was like, I needed to find that sweet spot. And I really progressed pretty quickly at that point. I was continually trying to find jobs where I could work and use and drink. And so I was a bartender. I was a cocktail waitress, and I would go to, I would start off at one place and then, go to another because it just kept getting worse and worse. And so you have to go find a place where you don't seem as bad as everyone else, and so you just keep trying to find these places where other people seem worse off than you. And that's a really sad place to be, when you are living that way. And I just every day was living my life by what I could get away with, and that was, I say this a lot. I didn't really have a life. I had damage control. So every day was getting up and trying to manage, fix, and avoid what I had done yesterday. So it was just damage control all the time. It was exhausting. And I had some big consequences that brought me back, closer to family. Because like I said, they were close enough to bail me out. So they did, when some, things happened, car wrecks and this and that, and, I didn't have a place to live. And, so I came home, and I lived with my sister for a couple of months. And at the time, my nieces were young. They were little. And if there is anything, I'm a big believer that everything happens for a reason. And, I'm where I am today because of everything, every decision I've made and all of that. So I'm big about not going back and saying, I wish I could do something different. But if there's anything that I could do different, it would have been to not put my sister and her husband and my nieces through those several months of pain and heartache. And just, when you have an active addict living in your house, it's hurt. It's hurt all the time. And it's lies. Yeah. And so, it was clear pretty quick that wasn't going to work out. And so I ended up moving on and, moving out of there. And within 5 or 6 months, I was to a place where I was so sick. I was praying every single night to die. Please, God, don't let me wake up tomorrow. I had become a lot more dependent on an array of substances, because things weren't working anymore. And I was having to find different, ways to change the way I felt and to manage and control and all of that. And it was really exhausting. And by the grace of God, I got arrested again. And I know only people in recovery understand this, that I am so grateful for the Tennessee Highway Patrol and, the fact that I got pulled over that night and
Absolutely.
Was taken to jail and booked and, and of course, the only person that would answer the phone in the morning was going to be somebody in my family. None of my so-called friends were going to answer the phone and bail me out. And so my mother and my sister came and picked me up from jail, and they were clearly not happy. And because they were so worried, they were so scared for me. And I'm still trying to spin it. I'm still trying to come up with a story. I'm not even telling them the truth about how I got arrested, which was probably written in a police report. I mean, I'm still trying to lie my way out of this.
Yeah.
Because I'm so scared that I'm going to have to do something different. I'm so scared of what's going to happen. And so clearly they saw me in crisis, and they got me to a hospital where I was stabilized for a couple of days. And and the doctor there said, I really think that substance use treatment is where you need to be. He said, I really, really think that that's what we need to do. And I was like, it had been a rough week. So I was kind of like, sure, if you'll let me out of here, I'll go, I'll do an assessment. No problem. And I went and did an assessment at this outpatient location for this residential treatment center that's in Nashville. And I, of course, minimized everything because in my mind, I thought this is perfect. I can go to this outpatient class in the morning and bartend at night. So this was my plan. This was my perfect plan that was going to work. And so my dad called me one day because I did my assessment and they made a recommendation, obviously, for inpatient, but I, knew better. So I said, no, I think I can do the outpatient. And my dad called me, and my dad's one of those guys that loves to talk about anything. So like everybody in the neighborhood knows all the really great stuff and all the really terrible stuff. Like he can't help himself. He's got to share everything. And so he had been talking at work about my situation, and someone came to him and said, I went to this treatment center. She should call this person and talk to them there. So he called me and he said, I want you to call this lady. And I was like, oh, I don't want to do this. I'm going to go to the outpatient. I've got this all planned. But I'm kind of a daddy's girl. So I was like, I guess I better do what he asked. And somehow they talked me into taking a tour of the residential facility. So they drove me there. And the very first time that I ever felt safe that I can remember in my life was sitting in an office at this residential facility talking to the director of the traditional adult program, who is a wonderful woman. And she didn't look at me like I was dirty, and she didn't look at me like I didn't belong. And she just looked at me with so much kindness and so much understanding. And she said, I think that you should come stay here with us. And I said, I think you're right. And that was it. I went to treatment. I did a 28-day treatment program at the time. I did everything that they suggested. And not for any other reason than I just wanted them to be right. I wanted there to be I wanted there to be relief. I wanted there to be happiness. I wanted to be free. I wanted all this stuff that these people kept coming into this treatment center and telling me was going on in their life. And especially there was this alumni group that would come out and they would answer questions and they would talk about recovery, and they were real people. They weren't staff. They weren't, on a commercial. They didn't have a pamphlet. They just were these real people. And they gave me a lot of hope. And so I did, what they suggested, and, and I kept doing it. And, that's why I was so excited about community being the topic for this week, because in active addiction, I lived in isolation, even when I had roommates, even when I was the center of the party, which many, many times in my life I was alone, and I was isolated, and I was just full of desperation, and I was completely empty. And so when I got into recovery, I found a community. I found a community of recovery. I found that people in recovery were doing all of this great stuff outside in the world. They were volunteering here. They went to this church, or, they had this job. And I had no idea. I had no idea that that was the effect that making a decision to change and to, give up drugs and alcohol could result in this great butterfly effect of how it changes the world. And I got to see that over the years. So I've been in recovery for about 17 and a half years. And I have seen thousands of people come through treatment centers that I've worked in, and peer groups that I've been a part of, and 12-step recovery. And what the majority of those people have gone out into the world and done has changed the world. I have, I personally know people who have sought higher education to get to a place where they can go and change stigma and outcomes and research, and to help us as a community to take care of people with mental health and addiction. I have seen families restored. I have seen, relationships that people, thought were gone forever. I've seen those mended, and just the effect that has, and I've seen people completely change the course of their life. I've seen people come in with a certain career or a certain, idea of what their life was supposed to be, and then do a complete 180 and, go in a different direction that has just helped so many people and has brought, more understanding and love and community. So it's, this is one of my favorite topics, obviously, because I love working with people in recovery. I love to be a part of that process. I love to hear about how they go home to their house and what their day looks like and who they interact with. And, it's funny because a lot of people, I'm very used to people knowing that I'm a person in long-term recovery. I talk about it a lot, and it's not something that I'm, very private about. And it's so interesting to me because I have met some people before that have said, well, you shouldn't tell people that, and I'm the opposite. I mean, I'm having a conversation with the cashier at Walmart about my recovery, and then she's 5 years in recovery, and we're talking about meetings, and, it's such a part of the fabric of my spirit that I want to share that. And I think that's how that butterfly effect starts. It's that, that one person who just can't stand but to share something wonderful with somebody else, and then what they share, and on and on and on. And it's just amazing when you look around and you see all of the accomplishments, especially, like I said, for me, because I've worked in residential treatment for a long time. So I've seen people at their worst, when they first come in, just like I was, and you're so broken and you're so sad and you're so hopeless. And, fast forward, and these people are thriving, and not only are they thriving, but they are productive members of society. They are changing the face of the world as we know it. And it is because they had the courage and the strength to ask for help, and that's really we concentrate so much on the loss and overdoses and the opioid epidemic and relapses, and you hear so much about that. And if a celebrity's in recovery and they have a relapse, that's going to be all over the news. I mean, that's just the way the world works. And I don't think that we celebrate enough the accomplishment of what truly being in recovery is about. It's
right.
based on service. It's based on serving your fellow man or woman. And it's based on being a part of something that is greater and bigger. And from the time I was a little kid, that's what I was looking for, and I didn't know. And that's exactly what I was given. I was given a specific place that I belong. And it doesn't matter. I can be in another state or another country even. And if I happen to run into somebody and start up a conversation about recovery and they also have experience with that, automatically we're connected. It's really something that is so special and so sacred. And it's really is changing the face of society. I think we are a group of cycle breakers, and we're trying to take the shame out of it and stop hiding. I want to bring mental health and substance use disorder out of the dark. We don't need to hide that in the back of the closet anymore. We need to bring it out, and we need to nurture it and take care of it. Because, every person who suffers with mental health or substance use disorder is somebody's child. Everybody has a purpose and a place in the world. So I'm really dedicated to trying to honor that and help people in that journey. To me, that's kind of the greatest thing that I can do, is to just walk with people on this journey and see all the great stuff they accomplish.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is about it.
Well, thank you so much. I just wanted to say, so much of what you talked about really resounds, in your story about from what you said in the early stages of your addiction, or even in childhood, you were just longing for connection. That's, you wanted to be seen and you wanted to feel connected. And we find that on the other side of, the opposite of addiction and on the other side of recovery. We find it. We have to search for it. We have to ask for it. We have to accept help, like you said. And I think that's one of the most awesome things that we get to do working in alumni, which I didn't mention yet on this episode, but Jaime actually is our director of alumni services for the Ranch, Tennessee. And so she's been doing alumni work for many years now. And we get to do a lot of awesome stuff and watch a much more long-term view. Kind of, you touched on this of getting to, a therapist might only get to see, a short time span of somebody's life change in treatment, but working in alumni, we get to see a lot, see and interact with clients on a long-term basis. And it is so, we're the lucky ones, my goodness,
Absolutely.
We get to be part of that long-term and, cheerlead on and celebrate with our alumni as they stay sober or come back from, a slip. And, the last thing I wanted to mention is kind of what you talked about in bringing mental health disorders and addiction out of the dark into the light, breaking the stigma and what have you. And that's one of the things we're trying to do in the work we're doing with these broadcasts as well, to share, provide more access for people to hear stories about recovery, what it looks like, what the struggles look like, the path to hope. And so thank you so much for getting vulnerable today and sharing all of your story with everybody, because it is powerful.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really grateful. And I was taught that gratitude is an action. So if I'm grateful for my recovery, then I need to share that and help others.
Yes, ma'am. Cool. Well, thanks again. And just want to remind everybody, if you like anything you've heard today and you want to try a new way or ask for help, there is a solution that you can take advantage of at the bottom of your screen. We've got people willing and ready to help you out and talk you through it. So take that action and or share it with somebody you love. And with that, happy National Recovery Month to you all. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.